The ModernJeeper Show, the show about Jeeps, Jeeping, and Jeepers.
Well, hey, Modern Jeepers, this is another episode of the ModernJeeper Show with me, Matson from MotorCloak, and Mr. Modern Jeeper, Corey Osborne.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, Rockstar Jeep girl, Jessy.
Hey.
Hey, and Mr. Jeremy Rowan, Outlaw Jeep Adventures. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, everybody. Great. How are you?
Good, good. So you've been on this show. How many times now has he been on this, Corey?
I don't know, 3-4 times maybe?
3 or 4 times? Almost
Like
a
that?
regular.
It's almost like we like him.
You know, we don't actually like anybody that's on this show. That's why we embarrass them by bringing them on. If we liked people, we would invite them on the show.
We need people to make fun of during our regular podcast. Matson, you and I, we run out of stuff to talk about. We bring in somebody else, and hopefully they can fill in the gaps.
Yeah, I think we need to start what we need to do is we need to bring in an anonymous person. Like, there's so much we can't talk about because our friends tell us about it.
Yes.
And we need to have like somebody come in like the Stig or something with a helmet on.
With a helmet on and just talk about random. Oh, I like it.
Yeah, like real like intense stuff that's actually happening in the industry that we don't know about, because it's like,
I
think we get to like industry draw. This is the insider story.
We could just, blur out their face and then use one of those voice it's like
if we're gonna blur it out, I can just do a hand puppet.
A hand puppet.
We just do a little hand puppet, right? Right?
No creepy dolls.
Oh, look, Jeremy's got a hand puppet.
Some would say Jeremy is a hand puppet.
That's true.
It's been a ride. I'm just gonna preface it with that. The last few months have been pretty much a whirlwind of stuff, and I don't know that Jessy and I are still feeling. All right, we've been home for like 36 hours. We just got back from Texas and the Palo Duro Challenge. It's been a whirlwind of events and people, and I feel a little bit out of sorts. I don't feel like we're back in our routines by any stretch of the words. I do want to say I got to give a shout out to the folks at Palo Duro Challenge. You know what, that event? I'm going to be pretty open and honest here. That event is pretty horrible. It is a great place to go wheel. It is in an environment that is not very friendly.
Yeah.
How so?
We're talking about Amarillo, Texas, and it's extremely flat, except there happens to be a large hole in the ground out there that is the second largest canyon in the lower 48 states, Palo Duro Canyon. It's hot. It's dirty. It's dusty.
Silty.
It's silty. It will wreck you. There are everything in Palo Duro Canyon. It's kind of like what I consider like Baja, Mexico. Everything that wants to kill you,
including the people.
Spiders.
People aren't so bad, but all of the terrain is it's
harsh.
It's very harsh. It's a very extreme environment, and but one of the things that again, going down to an event like that, Jeep Exclusive is the club that puts that event on every year, and I've known a lot of those guys for a number of years. And the coolest thing for me, and I'm throwing this out there to events all across the country, the coolest thing for me is when people come up and they know who we are, and they come up and they just say hi, and hey, it's been a couple of years since we've seen you guys, and hey, remember, and their memories are far superior than the stuff that I can remember, and they remember the last time, what trails we did and where we were, and the folks that follow us. It's amazing to me because I don't even know where I've been. So it's really helpful for them to come up and give me that whole, hey, we just saw you guys were in Pigeon Forge or Virginia or Moab or wherever. It's it's such a cool thing to have people come up and go, we're watching, and just a shout out to all of them, because it's really hard to keep it all straight sometimes. And these folks that Jeep exclusive that I've known for years and years, it's really cool when they come up and I may not know their name right away, but they always know ours, and they're like, hey, just checking on you, making sure you're doing okay. That is one of those events. And the people in Texas are all about that. They're all about the relationships. They're all about remembering where you've been, where you've come from, and they're about making you feel at home and making sure that you have what you need to enjoy yourself. So that's all. Kudos to all those people.
That's awesome. I think there's a lot of true about just events that work well together. I mean,
yes,
when events are working well, because people are working well, right? People are actually taking care of you.
That's right.
So that's awesome. One of these days I'll make it out to there. Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's funny because I had a
better take your medicine.
I wrote down we kind of got again, I don't know whether it's a COVID thing or whatever, but I kind of got sick middle of last week. I had a couple of nights that were not very comfortable, high fever, sweating, cold-like, flu-like symptoms, all of that crap again. Well, then Jessy got it. And Jessy was down for about a day and a half, 2 days. Again, I don't know. I don't know what causes it, whether it's just stress, travel, life, whatever.
I know how Jessy caught it from you. Okay, so but that's pretty easy to figure out, right?
Yeah, there's probably definitely spit. Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that. But one of my notes in my delirium, I wrote down after the first day down there, was that relationships with online quote unquote YouTubers,
I'm glad you went that
seem to be becoming more important than personal, real life, real world relationships. And I tried to kind of go back and reflect on what I meant when I wrote it down. And I think I was in just kind of a frustration mode of, it's very interesting to me that in our current world, social media, while we all want to not fight it, but we all want to quantify it, qualify it, justify it, make it so that it makes sense to us in our world. And it turns out that I actually think the opposite is taking place. I think that we're more along the lines of Idiocracy, the movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Literally, our YouTube folks that we've followed or know of, Instagram, social media in general, I'm just going to throw that out there. Those relationships are becoming very important, and we have a connection with these people that are producing content that is outside of our realm. It's kind of like when I used to watch, I don't know, the sitcoms of the 70s, right? Happy Days. We'll use that. I've never known Henry Winkler personally, but I felt like I had a relationship with him, right? Because we watched those sitcoms as the Fonz. And now the YouTubers have filled in that place because people aren't watching those sitcoms anymore. They're having a relationship now with somebody on YouTube, which is becoming that channel of infotainment. And they feel like they know these people. They feel like they know us. They feel like they know Jeremy. They feel like they know Matson. They feel like they know all of us because of the industry. And I'm curious for our followers if they, I had some comments made to us that they look forward to seeing the podcast. That's what their form of entertainment is. And I'm glad we're entertaining. But I guess my point is, I think it's interesting how we're evolving into this. Is YouTube going to become has it become our YouTube TV? Is what the people that are doing there, is that how we justify our own situations? Is we're involved with them. We feel like we know them. because we've watched all of their YouTube feeds. Now there are actors and actresses. They are our celebrities, but it's on a smaller scale. So we may actually get to meet these folks and interact with them.
Well,
it's very interesting.
I think so. And I think you hit on something there. They're not the actors and actresses, though, because we believe there's a difference between the Fonz. You knew the Fonz, and if you walked up in during the 70s when Happy Days was super popular, and you walked up and met Henry Winkler someplace, you would be disappointed if he wasn't dressed as the Fonz.
Right.
The difference now is we have these people that are out there and they are trying to, quote unquote, genuinely be themselves. And so when you go and meet them, you're hoping to meet them and genuinely be like they are the new, they're not really acting it, they're being it, right? And you want to be it because interestingly enough, I'll get a little bit of a sermon going, but went to church on Sunday, been a while. The only reason I went because they promised that my kids were not too wild for Sunday school. I'm like, okay, I'll go back. I'll go back. We'll give this a try. We'll give this a try. It turned out it was true. And the sermon was specifically about how in Corinthians there's this focus on you are the part of the body, right? You're not just your hands, you're not just your eyes, you're not just your ears. There's your body consists of parts. And as a member of a church, we are all parts of that church, right? It's not just oneself. But in today's world, it's not about the group, how you can do better for the group. It's not how you can do better for the community. It's not how you do better for your fellow man. It's all about what is good for you. It's like be your genuine self. What is your true self? Do what makes you happy. And these are all things that are driven into what we believe. So when we watch YouTube, we're thinking, oh, that person's being their genuine self. That person's making themselves happy. How can I be like that? And when we're longing for happiness, watching these people that are supposedly genuinely being themselves becomes our escape. Because maybe I too can be like that. I mean, listen, there's a million YouTubers out there. Every day you're trying to post something new, right? And most of them are failing. You can go on any time and you find somebody who's did like 10 videos 3 years ago, and that was the last they did. They tried.
Yep.
But they're trying to be they think, oh, I can just be my genuine self. Well, it doesn't work that way. The successful YouTubers figured out they're part of a community. Kim Kardashian is part of a community, right? She's not just herself. She is part of a community. And so those people that are out there trying to be a part of a community and still be part of a group, I think are the ones that are succeeding. Anyway, we can go down a whole different path on that, but it is interesting that we are in this point where it is hard to get somebody motivated to do something other than that which is trying to make themselves happy or that which is self-serving.
Yeah, I totally get your point, and I agree. I think that it's very interesting for me because I consider myself still an old school kind of guy, and I think our industry is extremely small. But for a newcomer into the Jeeping lifestyle and off-road lifestyle, I get it. It should be overwhelming because it is. There's a lot of information out there, and where we get that information is very, very important. And as we go down this road of people sharing their experiences, I don't know that YouTube is the place that people are, and I get it. Like even people coming to Colorado, and I know that Jeremy deals with this all the time. People going to Moab, they've watched a video of a trail they've wanted to run their whole life. They've watched a video 75 times, and now they're an expert. They can go out there and they can drive that trail because they've seen that video. That has nothing to do with real life, real world stuff. And it's very hard for me to kind of understand that that's how folks are learning, because I know that even when I go to Moab and Jesse goes to Moab, Matson, when you go to Moab, I've told people, I don't know how many times, hey, look, go see Outlaw Adventures. Go talk to Jeremy. Let him tell you where you should and shouldn't go. And I don't know that a lot of people do that because there's so much information available now. They can go get a book and they can watch some videos and they can go anywhere they want. Well, guess what? That has nothing to do with your capabilities. And I'm sorry, there's part of me that is still the cynical, until you put yourself in somebody else's shoes. I think that it's important for us to understand that experience. This guide, a professional guide that was killed a couple weeks ago here in Uray. That's a horrible tragedy, and he was experienced, and he had a group, a couple of passengers with him, and he drove off the trail, and nobody will ever know what the situation was, but it's horrible. These are experienced people. What we do every day is risky. And I think that the YouTube and the social media has taken the risk out of it.
Yep.
How many videos do we all watch? What are the most successful, popular videos? It's carnage. It's extreme stuff that nobody wants to do, but they're doing it all for the Instagram or the social media
Right.
aspect of it. And I'm like, wow, fail.
And that
It's
goes
a
on all
fail to me.
there's why do some of these guys, I mean, there's guys going out there and beating up old men on the subway in New York City while filming themselves.
Right.
Why? For the social media of it, right?
Right.
Or why does somebody stand there while it's happening with a camera and go, oh, I better capture this, and not doing anything except for watching this happen. It's time and again. Oh, because look, I'm going to get so many hits off of this one. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But you talked earlier before we started in the pre-show. You were talking about Oculus. Jeremy, I bet you can't wait until the guy comes up and says, "Oh yeah, I've driven this before." Like, well, oh really?
Right.
That's cool. Yeah. I used it on Oculus. Right, we went on the 4x program, and we actually went all the way through Golden Spike. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I actually think that would be a better learning tool than just watching somebody go through, golden staircase and rolling over. I think putting the Oculus on and actually seeing for yourself what you're doing would actually be a better version than some of the YouTube channels. It's amazing how many times we get up the obstacles that you and we all take for granted, like Hell's Gate or Pritchett. I've actually had people standing there. We have large crowds at the top of Hell's Gate, and it's amazing me every time I get up and they go, oh.
Like,
Yes. Nothing happened.
Didn't roll over, or
It's sad. It is sad.
I love watching NASCAR, but you want to see the wreck. I'm sorry.
I mean, why do we
There's only
watch
so
hockey?
many. You can only watch 500 miles so much before you want to see a wreck to make it exciting.
I went to a fight and a hockey game broke out.
It was sad. Something to your point though, about going earlier about marketing and where it sits at today. So I was just listening to a podcast. Everybody should hear this because I'm promoting it up the top of my lung. Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs. He's been doing that for 20 years. He has a podcast called The Way I Heard It. It is probably the most interesting podcast I've ever listened to. One, because Mike Rowe is just a super intelligent guy, and his baritone voice just lulls you into love. But he also has just these super interesting guests. So now I'm listening to the founder of Black Rifle Coffee Company and his background and his military background and all of this. And something that struck me is like everything he's done, he has spent no money on marketing in a traditional sense, right? It's a publicly traded company now, massively done well. They're doing great as a coffee company. But what they did is they genuinely just started creating content. And from one of the most popular videos ever went viral was called How to Be an American. And if you haven't watched that video, YouTube it, go to Google, type in YouTube, How to Be an American, Black BRCC, and you'll find it. It is an incredibly irreverent video that just went viral, and it did a lot for their company brand. But you need to start thinking about it. It is genuinely good coffee, and people genuinely like the coffee. And the Black Rifle Coffee Company name is obviously a good name, and it's just all built up. But part of their start was these videos that he did about himself with his partners. So again, it was an individual creating a personal brand where we feel like we are supporting this coffee and buying the coffee because we're supporting this person we know, right? It's not a general brand. We're not trying to, when you go down to Starbucks, you buy a Starbucks, you're not saying, wow, I really feel that I'm helping Howard Schultz or whatever the guy's name is. But when you go to Black Rifle Coffee Company, like, wow, I'm helping veterans and I'm helping these guys who started it. And it's like, well, I'm part of their story, right? You're part of their community. And that's something all of us companies are kind of working through and trying to figure out, like, what are your story? You have to have a genuine story these days. It can't just be, I made a great product and I want you to buy it, right? Jeremy, you've done that over how many years have you been doing Outlaw now?
6 years.
6 years, and 6 years of building a genuine story around this that was that has made it popular to come see and hang out. Now, I don't know if you do a good enough job of it, meaning that, like, I haven't seen you just do a really irreverent stuff out on videos and
No, I haven't
drag
really.
racing up and down the streets of Moab. And your
Everybody,
Jeeps.
everybody, check out Jeremy Rowan on TikTok. It's coming
Yeah.
soon.
He has an OnlyFriends account, but that's different.
That's totally
Only
different.
friends.
Only friends, yeah. No, Justin from Factor 55 actually was in Moab doing the event for a rig for dirt. Is that what that? Yeah, great little event. He was there doing a class for it. He walked into our office and he was like, "Guys, where's your YouTube channel?" And I was like, "Well, we're kind of busy to do that." He's like, "No, people want to see people walk in here and, like, the families walk in. They want to see people go on these adventures." And I was like, first I was like, why? And then he rode it with me all night. We did a night run and he explained all this stuff. He's like, people, like Corey, to your point, people want to live through these experiences and see them when they can't go do it themselves. So, if I start one that's, really popular, I'll credit Corey and Justin with that. So I'll tag you guys in the bottom of it or something. But it was just interesting to hear Justin's perspective of people want to see this. And Matt's, to your point, we've tried to do a really good job of wanting to get people here and wanting to hang out with the Outlaw brand. And now I think I've done a pretty good job of not making it me, not making it myself. People now call and they're like, I want to hang out with Dan. I want to hang out with Nick. In fact, Nick did that night run with Rugged Radios, and he's now, like, people are calling going, is the owner of the company Nick there? And I'm like, no, which is fine. I've actually tried to do that. A lot of people, when they come to the shop, don't know that I'm the owner, and which is how I've tried to keep it. But it's awesome to see other people want to share these experiences and that these guys are doing such a great job with it.
Well, you know what? I've said this before in the past. It's no different if our followers out there are scuba divers. You don't go to a new country. You don't jump in the water and go, "Yep, I'm going to go diving." You always get with a local guide. Again, and I'll be very open about this. When I go over to Moab, Moab is my backyard. It's Jessy and I's. We're very close to Moab. I've wheeled there for 20 years. When I go over there, what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna just go out and run a bunch of trails. I'm gonna get a hold of Jeremy or any of the guys down there and find out what the current conditions are of any of these trails are changing. They're evolving. What you saw on YouTube could have been a video from 20 years ago. Guess what? That stuff doesn't exist anymore. So again, this local expert type of philosophy is such a huge thing, and I can't stress it enough. I don't care what book you have, or if you saw a video from somebody that did whatever trail yesterday, wherever you're going. If there's a local guy, you should probably reach out to them first. I'm not going to go run any of the trails in Moab until I at least touch base with somebody who lives there. He can tell me way more than I'm ever going to find out on social media. So,
right. And that's one of the reasons why with Modern Jeeper Adventures, we always have a local partner. It helps because we have to be able to know. It also prevents us having to go out and pre-run and do everything else out, because usually the local partner does. Or in the case of the San Juans, you are the local partner.
Right.
But it is true. It's better to have people that know what have been done. Now, part of the reason why we have Jeremy on today is this as well. Since we're talking about Moab, this is a good transition. We've talked before about the problems happening in what's being called the BLM land grab now, of Moab, and it really is. I don't know if it was implemented by BLM, if it was a push by BLM, or if it's other forces at work. We've talked before about if you let the environmentalists do their full-time job, which is to reclaim everything and not let anything exist, and they want you all to live in cities so they can have the rest of the land to themselves, then you are going to lose if you just let them do their thing. You have to continuously, it's a constant vigilant fight back. Well, Jeremy, why don't you let us in on what's happening, what's going on, what's the local reception like amongst the community, and we can go from there.
Yeah. So by now, many people have heard that in Moab, we have the Labyrinth Rim Gemini Bridges area, which encompasses all of the Jeep Safari trails, which are the most famous. Golden Spike. Oh, Corey has a map right here. So Golden Spike, Gemini Bridges, 7 Mile Rim, Monitor Merrimack, a huge area of trails. In fact, it is 1,057 miles of trails that are currently open in just that area. So in Moab, it's a massive area. We have 1.8 million acres in the Moab area that the BLM manages. I give them credit for trying to manage something like that. That's a ton of stuff to manage with. I think they have 3 police officers currently and a staff of only about 20 or 30 people. It's a huge area to run. So in that area, we're talking about 304,000 acres in the Labyrinth Rim area. So this is, again, north of the bridge, north of the Colorado River, and west, so northwest of the Colorado River and west of Arches National Park. So everything leading out Highway 313 out to Canyonlands, all that entire area over there. And to Matson, you asked what brought this. So BLM, I do want to give a little bit of clarification. BLM isn't the one doing this. They're being forced to do this by SUA, which is the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance. There was a lawsuit brought back in 2008, essentially SUA was claiming that we need to shut down all these roads because they're no longer being used for mining and things like that. And now they need to be protected for any of the animals and the animals that are going extinct, all of that stuff. So the government settled with them. And so the settlement was that we have to do these travel management plans. The TMPs is what they call them. So this one was from 2008, and this is a standard review of all open roads in these areas. So right now, this area is being reviewed from 2008. And we can, Corey, I'll provide you links that we can put in here that we can send people to the actual maps but to their credit, they have done so much work, 1,100 miles of trails, almost 1,200 miles of trails. They have mapped every single one of them. They've done a resource plan on every single one of them. They've looked at all the environmental impacts on every single one of them. So it's just a massive amount of work. What the BLM is now proposing is 4 different plans. So A, B, C, and D, that's their plans. And again, Corey, I'll send you the links to them. A is no action at all. It is leave everything as it is. Everything's managed currently well. There's some language in the lawsuit, in the settlement, that probably won't fly. As much as we want no action at all, that's probably not going to happen. B, 600 acres or 600 miles of trails out of the 1,200 stays open, which means we lose 400 miles. We lose 600 miles of trails closed essentially overnight if they choose B. C, there's 838 miles open, and D, there's 974 miles open. Now, to clarify, some of these are spur roads that people have created over the years by seeing like a wedge in the road, and they want to get from A to B, and they go straight across C to get over there. So some of them legitimately should be closed off. They should be restored for environmental impact. Some of them do go over like Native American sites, things like that. So there's things that should be protected. one of the things BLM has been really talking about is doing seasonal closures for like the mating areas of the desert pronghorn sheep and mountain sheep and things like that, which I could kind of get on board with if we're disturbing where they are mating and things. Okay. So obviously most of us want the A plan. D is the most acceptable for us as off-roaders because it leaves the most open and closes mostly roads that have been created that shouldn't have been. The interesting part that I learned, and I want everyone to know really the very good point here. So it's not just A, B, C, or D. If you're going to spend your time and write a comment to the BLM, which we have until October 8th to write comments, it's not just I want A, B, C, or D. It is I want D because I brought my family out to 7 Mile Rim, and like that's where I shared all the memories of my kid growing up. And so it's not just pick A. We're not voting on A, B, C, or D. The BLM has to then take all of the comment periods and put them all together and find the actual travel plan. So it is very important to get people involved to send messages to the BLM. Again, Corey will send you the link to do that. You can mail them in, you can email them. Excuse me. So yeah, a D is the most acceptable one that we want. But if like B were to go through, we would actually lose essentially most of the Golden Spike Trail, all of where Eagles Dare is, all of that would be gone. And not just.
Let me ask a fairly obvious question, considering the history of our community, which tends to be fairly law-abiding, but there's only a few officers out there in BLM land, right? So, I mean, who really believes that they can go and shut down 600 miles of trails and then not have those 600 miles of trails continue to be used by, maybe won't happen for Easter Jeep Safari, or you guys will stay off of it as license holders, but can they really do that kind of dramatic of a change and enforce it?
Yeah, they can. Before, a great example is Corey, I think you've been on part of this Hell's Revenge Trail. We lost half of that about 19 years ago. We lost a part that we used to go out to by Mushroom Rock, this great area called the Staircase. They went out there one day. A BLM officer went out, put up a sign, said, "Closed trail, we're done." Everyone stayed off of it, and then it disappeared. And years later, we all got together. In fact, Jake from Cardo Tracks came out and mapped everything. He did an incredible job mapping that for the BLM. And then a bunch of us got together and proposed to the BLM that we reopen the area called the Staircase. And this last spring, surprisingly, we actually got a reopened area on Hell's Revenge, which is super fun. It's like a little mini Hell's Gate almost. It's an area that's just a little spurt that goes back from Tip Over Challenge back to what we call Second Dome. Really fun, much easier way to get off the trail, especially at night. So we can get things reopened. But to your point, yeah, they can go out and close things, and they do a really good job of closing them, and they make it look like those roads never existed.
Yeah, there are sections out on where this particular management plan affects out on Gold Bar Rim and that area where there are metal spikes embedded in the ground with chain link. So that's to keep people from going off trail. And again, it's one of those things that we've stressed for years and years and years. This also ties into that BLM meeting that we had. I talk about it every time I get in front of a group of people. We had this online meeting with the BLM field office in Moab. And, before this was 2021, January of 2021. So we had gotten through 2020 and the COVID issues and all that. And that BLM field office had been dealing with about 1.5 million people, 1.5 million people through the district in a year. In 2020, they dealt with 3 million people through the district. So from the BLM's perspective, and Jeremy is spot on, like they don't have the staff. They can't support it. They can't maintain it. They can't control it. So it's happened here in Colorado, whereas they think that, you know what, we'll limit access to the trails. But what that does is then it funnels all of these same people, because people aren't going to stop going outdoors. They're going to funnel all of these people into smaller areas, which is going to then overburden it. But again, like Jeremy said, and this is coming from a separate lawsuit, that the BLM is, the fact that this proposal is out there. They're not going to do nothing. They've gone through these steps. If they were to choose option A, it would surprise everybody, because that means they've said, "Oh no, all's good." Like that's just not a typical government entity thing to do. Um, we've had a couple of people that can, if you're interested in the information, we'll obviously have the show links, with the links to the websites to go to. But even modernjeeper.com, we've shared a bunch of information out there. Red Rock Four Wheelers Group has done a good job of trying to get their word out. Guys, these are trails that we've run for years. Jeremy mentioned Golden Spike, Gold Bar Rim, 7 Mile. Like, these are huge systems of trails that we've loved for years, and you may not be able to use them anymore. So if you don't make a comment, yeah, go ahead.
Golden Spike is like shutting down Hell's Revenge. I mean, that is, and for the viewers that love to watch YouTube, you will know it as the trifecta, which does not exist in Moab. The trifecta would be Poison Spider, Golden Spike, and Gold Bar Rim. That doesn't exist. Golden Spike is the name of the trail, and that is all three of those together. So, yeah, that trail that people, drive 2,000 miles across the country to come use could be gone. And it's very clearly on B, I think it's B and C, both closed parts of that trail. So very important to get some comments out there. And again, not just don't do anything, leave everything open. That's not very helpful. They'll mark it as a comment, but not really look at it. You need any stories. Like Corey, you've been on Golden Spike for years and years. Tell a story of, tell a story of when you met Dan Mick out there on Golden Spike, and why it's important to leave these historical places open.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to change the name of Jeeps in my world. Like, come on.
So what is the overall sense for the Moab community? Obviously, Moab has grown up to a great degree that it's not just about Jeeping, or it's not just even about outdoors life right now. I mean, you have a huge population coming there as purely as tourists for the area, that aren't really coming for the recreational aspects of the region. So what does it mean? What is the city council doing? What is the community doing? What is the Moab community overall sense on this?
Well, the city council's being pretty good. Unfortunately, the city council doesn't really control right outside of the city of Moab. Is actually very tiny. It's very small. And so it's the county. And the county has actually sent letters saying that they would like to see B, where the most management, most things are closed. That's what the county has said, the county council. So our county council, and anyone that's local in Moab that's listening to this, please vote in a few weeks, because that county council needs to go. They're currently involved in a lawsuit with myself and a whole bunch of other businesses in town because of the things they're doing. One of the things they're doing is they're trying to close access to motorized travel. And interestingly enough, many people, and you guys were talking about community earlier, many people think that, they're not coming after my little part of my community, so I'm not going to do anything. On the meeting the other night with the BLM, there was a bunch of pilots in there. And I kind of scratched my head, like, why do pilots care about the trails that are open back there? And then I realized that once a plane lands on a backcountry airstrip, it is actually an OHV. It is a motorized wheeled machine. So they're also going to close access to backcountry airstrips. So there's 3 currently in this area, the 3 backcountry airstrips, and 2 of them would go away because the BLM says they're not used enough, and they haven't been used enough in the last 20 years or whatever. So what did I do Friday morning? I called a bunch of my pilot buddies and said, "Hey, you guys should go fly around some more and go find some of the airstrips."
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's not just this is against Jeeps, it's against UTVs. It's not that. It is they're going to start coming after e-bikes. In fact, e-bikes are included in this plan. E-bikes would not be allowed on many of these trails as well. Years ago, it was mountain bikes. We need to realize that us as recreationists are involved with every other person that's recreating out there too, which is why I always try to tell people, if you see hikers on a Jeep trail, that's their trail too. We are a multi-use trail. It is not a Jeep trail. It is a multi-use trail, and you need to know who has the right of way. We need to, stop when people are out there. In Moab, it's very important to talk to those hikers when it's 110 degrees outside and make sure you still have the right amount of water and they're not dying and they don't need a ride. Like, we are all involved with the people around us. And we need to remember that it's not just YouTube people. It's not just, oh, I'm going to watch a video of it. No, you're involved in this. So I was shocked the other night. The meeting for the BLM only had 94 live attendees on the meeting. On an issue this important, we had 94 people show up to a live meeting. So how many comments are out there so far? I don't know. You can log on to the BLM site and it actually tells you how many people have commented. But we need more involvement. We need more involvement from the community. I told Corey the other day, I think it's really interesting to see these, is it Windrock? Is that the name of the Windrock parks? They're popping up everywhere, which is awesome because it's giving people access to these private areas. But too many people are like, oh, Windrock is in my backyard, so I don't need to worry about Moab. No, that's not the case. If you want to come to Moab in 5 years, if you want to come to Jeep Safari next year, you need to worry about Moab. Moab is still the Jeep mecca, the Jeep capital of the world. People need to take it seriously that this is going to go away if we don't do anything about it. And we can do stuff about it. The BLM hasn't decided yet. If we do enough comments and get enough people involved in this process, the BLM will choose the right one. And I do believe that. I do believe that the BLM will choose the right one, the right travel management plan for the area. I don't think there's anybody at the BLM going, oh, I really want to shut down, these 400 miles of trail. And I really don't think anybody's sitting there doing that. I think they're doing their jobs and they're in a very tough position right now. They're in a very tough place being forced to do this, and they're making the best of it.
Well, and for all of our followers that have been aware as we bring up land use issues, and I get it. Majority of our followers are in the West. I would much rather be reaching the people out in the East, because all those private management parks, those privately managed areas, we don't want the West to become that, and we're on the verge of that happening. All those people in the East that want to come out West, and they're always amazed. Wow, we can just go out and we can wheel. Yeah. And that is a huge, huge important thing for us in the off-road industry. If you want that to go away and you want us to become just like the East and have it be private land, guess what? Private property owners aren't going to be able to go in there and purchase land that's owned by the government and create these private off-road parks. They're going to have a couple hundred acres. I mean, thank goodness we have areas like Area BFE that, at some day maybe that becomes a more of an open public use area. But again, all of these historic trails in Moab are at risk. And the fact that BLM, it reminds me of the San Rafael swell issues that came up a few months ago, where they were showing pictures and literally they were shutting down roads because there hasn't been any tire tracks on it. Yet they'd show an image and you can clearly see a path where off-road vehicles had gone, but there were no new tire tracks on the road. So the BLM said, yeah, probably not being used anymore. We should probably just shut this area off.
And in the desert, that only takes about 4 or 5 days in the desert for tire tracks to disappear.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
I've been up on 7 Mile tons of times in between Monitor Merrimack Buttes, and you leave the slick rock and get on the sand. Those tire tracks go away very quickly, especially with all the rain we've had and the flooding we've had. And, they could have been out there on Saturday morning, Saturday night, a storm came through and everything's gone.
Yeah.
Like there is no evidence of a new tire tracks or whatever. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So we do some things to prevent that I won't publicly say on a podcast, but yeah, you got to make sure that these roads are used and that the correct roads are being used. I will never promote anybody going off trail ever. But if there is a road that has been there, like a mining road that's been there for 100 years, you best get on it and use it, because that's the biggest excuse they use is it's not traveled enough to keep it open.
Right.
And be safe about it.
Yes.
Right. Well, that's interesting. So now this is only, you said motorized, you said e-bikes. What about, because when they went out for the wilderness area, when that big push happened a decade or so ago, thankfully, got overcame. But I'm going to say that with the idea that that's still the ultimate goal. Like there's still people out there, like the wilderness group, they want a wilderness area. What does a wilderness area means? It means man only, right? Man, horse, a llama, and dog.
I mean, some don't even mean horse.
That's
right.
Yeah.
So it's
I'm just delivered to my house. Sorry.
But there's no mountain biking in it. So when groups like REI got behind the wilderness area and signed a wilderness area, they'd get hit upside the head because, hey, they sell mountain bikes, they sell other equipment, they sell all kinds of stuff. They're not just about backpacking.
Right.
So we need, where does this one go as far as that? Does that mean all these trails are going to be closed to everything motorized or closed to any usage?
So this one is interesting because it's based on the 2008 lawsuit. This is only motorized travel. So this is specifically about motorized. It would not close anything to mountain bikes, traffic, like walking traffic, anything like that. But that's not to say that that's not coming next. The only reason that's not involved in this is because of the lawsuit in 2008. The lawsuit specifically has the travel management plan for motorized vehicles. So, and then we could sit here and argue that a mountain bike is still a motorized vehicle because you still have a mechanical force pulling you forward.
This is a stepping stone, and we've talked about this where we give up a little bit, and again, this is a compromise, right? I mean, like Jeremy said, they're not probably going to go along with A because they've gone through a lot of work and done all this due diligence. If we can get away with D, that would be great. But again, this is one of those stepping stones where, well, we've taken this much. Now let's just go ahead and make it full blown wilderness later, and then it eliminates all of it. Like it's such a it's gas prices are $6 a gallon. We're gonna come down $1, and now they're only $5. Well, great. So feel good with that. But a year ago they were $4. So again, it's that let's massage everyone.
We've talked about it time and time again. And we've used that analogy of the frog in the boiling water, right? And it's incrementally comes up on us incrementally. We do a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. Oh yeah, it's fine. I still get to go out. Well, what's interesting in this whole thing is that the major trails, I mean, these are major trails, are going to be closed down. And that's, I think, where we can get more momentum behind the community to understand major trails that you may have wanted to do in your bucket list to come into Moab are going to be shut down. It's not that all these little spur trails that maybe you aren't going to go do. These are major trails that will be eliminated. And that is that, if you even have an inkling about wanting to be out there. When I first did our post a couple of weeks ago, after seeing the email from Red Rock Four Wheelers and did a little graphic and a post and put it up there, that's what I said. Hey, even had your inkling about wanting to go to Moab, you need to be involved in this. You need to be involved in this. We had the same thing happen. We were here in this region with the Rubicon Trail. The Rubicon Trail was going to be completely shut down. Dell Albright and created Friends of the Rubicon, which was a alternative organization to the main foundation, which wasn't really doing much at the time. But Friends of the Rubicon really activated people and went in there and did the work to make sure that they could keep it open. Now, in that case, work was an was a requirement. Work was something that they could do. Like we understand, here are all the complaints from the environmentalists. We'll fix all that. So we'll fix all that. So in the case of BLM, unfortunately, we weren't involved in the community going, hey, here are the trails we think you should close, right? So that alternative D seems to be the best one, especially if you're going in and saying, hey, look at these trails, close all these trails. We don't need these trails. These are fine. Go and close them. We're giving you something. And then they have something to serve forward and go, hey, we're making everybody else happy because we made a a cooperative decision with all the parties involved on the best way to move forward. Unfortunately, the liberals, let's just change that. The environmentalists, liberal or not, the environmentalists don't like those kind of compromises, right? They have their long-term goal and they're going to push for it by doing these major changes. So
Well,
what is the
and it could be.
likelihood right now?
Oh, go ahead.
Jeremy, what
I
is the
mean,
likelihood right now? Where does it sit? Sorry.
Yeah, you're
Where do
fine.
we sit? Where do we sit on this? And what is the likelihood? Where do we see it?
I don't
What's
really
the
have
what's the
the
scuttlebutt on the street?
Yeah, I don't have the so inside track on what the BLM is thinking, but according to Red Rock Four Wheelers, a good source on the inside of Red Rock Four Wheelers is that D is the most likely right now. That, like you said, it gives a little bit that people can say, "Hey, we got some stuff closed," and I will concede that some of that stuff probably should be closed. Some is probably illegal trails that have been opened years and years ago. So D is most likely. However, what I really want to stress is that these are just their suggestions, A, B, C, and D. They could end with D that has one major trail in it that we all don't want to see closed. Like, this is not, these are just their proposals. But if they get enough comments from the environmental side that says, hey, there's a spotted mouse up on top of where eagles dare that we haven't seen in 800 years, they could add that into D. And it might not be in this process. It might not be right now. They would say D and we're going to close this, but we have this information that we're going to reevaluate. And in 6 months, we're going to go add this trail to the closure. That can happen too. It can also happen that they reopen or open new trails if we get behind some stuff the correct way. So it's just, the most important thing is to be involved with the BLM. And I know it's hard for people that don't live there, but everyone uses it, right? I think we're going to be close to 3 million visitors this year. That's a lot of people that should be involved with wanting to keep this stuff open. D is what the club is currently, and what Red Rock Four Wheelers is currently kind of pushing for, because they think it's the best scenario to give up something and to keep as much open as possible. So,
literally, I could make the argument that I'm not sure I'd even be involved in the off-road industry had it not been for that trip, 22 years ago, on Golden Spike. And was the trip horrendous and a mess? And yeah, it was. But I'm here today to hopefully be able to share those experiences and tell people that it's one of the most, I mean, those trails are the most historic and iconic. They're just as important as the Rubicon Trail in California. So us as outdoor enthusiasts and Jeepers, there's off-road parks in the East. Tellico comes up. Those are parks that got shut down, and guess what? You'll never be able to go wheel those trails. We don't want to be another one of those places where, how many times have I been out with Dell into Death Valley areas, and he tells me stories of when he was a kid and he used to be able to go into all these other areas that are now closed, that are all shut down. Moab, we don't want that to happen. And people go, well, we can go to St. George, we can go to Sand Hollow. Yeah. How much time do you think is going to go by before they start to kind of clamp that back? And again, they give us the enough rope for us to hang ourselves. And folks that get involved on the opposite side of what we do as outdoor enthusiasts, there's a lot of money behind them. There's a lot of pretty powerful political people and movements in order to protect our lands. Hey, let's drain Lake Powell, because those were great Indian lands, and now it's full of water, and we can't go hiking there anymore. Well, there's a whole water association, boating and recreation that relies on it, let alone the actual water value of it feeding Lake Mead and all that. So again, this plays into a much bigger picture of what is actually happening. We're going to be all driving jets and cars and electric vehicles here in 10 years anywhere. So anyway, so what does it matter? Well, guess
Yeah.
what? It all matters.
I
It
look
all
forward to the
matters.
Jets.
And these people that love Sand Hollow, that have boycotted some of Moab for whatever reason there may be, we need you too. Sand Hollow is not all that. We would go to fight for Sand Hollow as well. So please
Get involved.
go and get involved with Moab,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not.
Remember
Please.
things called like Lions Back, and you know how many calls we get a year for guiding up Lions Back still, and it's been closed for 18 years.
Yeah.
Like it's been, those kind of things will go away. So I'm going to say it here now first on the podcast without even running it by Corey or anything. Modern Jeeper Adventure Moab 2023, we will be running Golden Spike all the way through, not just part of it like we have done in the past. We will do the entire thing all the way through with every side obstacle, with everything that's still open. So we're going to do that 2023 for Modern Jeeper Adventure. So
That means you're camping like halfway through?
no,
Some might be camping.
we're gonna do the whole thing. We'll leave early, obviously.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's gonna be a night run involved there someplace.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, and that is such an iconic trail. It's just as important as Hell's Revenge is. It's just as important and extreme as Pritchett can be. I mean, again, these are trails that if you've not experienced them, you still want to experience them at some point in the future, you've gotta get involved. You've got to make this work. I mean,
if we have extreme guys come, tell you what, even after we pass the Golden Crack, we will split off, and the extreme guys will go down Rusty Nail. So
there you go.
And turn, and then the rest of the group will go out on the Golden Staircase and Gold Bar Rim. So yeah, we'll go down Rusty Nail, which is
that's a trip.
I personally think that's way harder than anything in Pritchett, quite honestly. So,
absolutely. It's definitely more technical than stuff in Pritchett.
Yeah. So Pritchett's fun and iconic, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I say that because I've been wheeling Pritchett for 20 years, and I kind of take it for granted a little bit. But.
And all that's exciting, guys. But if we let this happen, it doesn't happen, right?
Right.
What's the timeline on this again? So comments in by
October 8th, unless they extend that. Which there was a weird comment last night. Somebody asked in the meeting, they were like, "Are you going to extend?" Because I guess BLM has a habit of extending comment periods. And she didn't really say no. It's almost like somebody knew something, like something has happened that they're going to extend the comment period. But as it sits right now, it's October 8th until midnight on October 8th is the comment period. You can mail them. I'll send the email address or the website. You have to actually go on the website to the planning site, and then on the left-hand side, there's a green button that says participate. And you have to click that green button, put in your name, your comments. You can even upload pictures. If you have a family picture of you guys up there on somewhere, then add it. Well, do it. Part of it does have to be personal. Part of it needs to tug on some heartstrings of people at the BLM to be like, oh yeah, we're closing family recreation areas that will no longer be available.
Right.
So yeah, make it personal. This is not a form letter, send it in and say, don't close anything and be mean and angry to the BLM. This is make it personal and keep things open.
That's a great point. Same thing happened in the Rubicon. It was family stories, generations doing the Rubicon and sharing that it was a generational thing, that we're trying to preserve it because we want our kids and our kids' kids to be able to have the same experiences we had out on the trail. And it came down even to little sections of the trail, like when they were planning on closing certain parts of it. I'm like, no, let's not change it because it is still part of this iconic trail. So we can do the same thing for Moab, guys. Just get out there, put up your if you have experience out there, or if you're dreaming of going out there. What are you dreaming of doing? Why were you inspired to go do it? Why did you want to? Why is it on your bucket list that you want to go do one day? So share that story. And the personal touch matters. We talked earlier about marketing and the personal touch. That is, it's the same thing's true here, right? The personal touch of sharing your genuine story about Moab will make a big difference for the BLM.
Absolutely.
Huge difference. So, well, I really appreciate you guys giving some time to this and letting me, try to convey some information that hopefully people needed and can get out there and comment on. So, as always, Metal Cloak is a huge supporter of Outlaw. We love you guys and really appreciate everything you do for us. Modern Jeeper, well, we'll see how that relationship plays out.
So I'm curious on just discussion points, and it's not. Is there ever been any discussion about, well, if we decide to shut down some of these trails to the general public, can there be guided tours for the commercial side that are we are licensed to go on these, and we follow certain standards or protocols that still keep experiences, but it reduces the amount of traffic?
Yeah, my overall sense of that is that because of the travel management plan, that it currently is not part of the conversation. Um, as a licensed guide, sure, that makes me excited that we could still go out there. As an enthusiast, that is still a really bad outcome for this. That happened down in the Sedona area where they shut down, I think, 2 or 3 of the most iconic trails to guide only, and it doesn't go well. It needs to be more education. It needs to be people being responsible in the land and use of it. Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a proponent of open for everyone, not closed for most people. So I'm not going to say that's not part of the BLM solution eventually. And if they end up closing this down, quite honestly, I'll probably go after them and start trying to open something to guide only so we can still do it. But that I think will have to be after this travel management plan goes in. I know it's not part of any of these plans at all. So currently everything would be closed. Well, the most it would be closed is 600 acres or 600 miles of trail.
Well, it's interesting because you see that has changed even when it comes to backpacking and mountaineering, and where more and more, especially in the state of California, and you'll see permits required for everything. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Used to be
Permit only.
Right. Used to be Mount Whitney. You had to get permit to do a multi-day hike, but if you just were doing a 1 day up and down, you wasn't required. People just go up there, take off at 3 o'clock in the morning, go all the way to the top of Mount Whitney and back. That even became permitted. So it was part of their travel management was reducing the amount of traffic by requiring permits that are incredibly difficult to get. We've talked about that on the Rubicon Trail that came up before, where let's reduce the traffic by requiring permits to be on the trail. Allows the trail to stay open. Thankfully, we've got some great advocates in El Dorado County that continue to manage it and want to keep the trail open for everybody to use. But at some point, it may come down to that. If the current advocates change jobs, somebody new comes in, that's always a sideline. I've always seen that could be a possibility in Moab, where you reduce the amount of traffic just by having people required to get permits before they come out. And I think that would especially reduce the amount of traffic that happens with the side-by-sides. Because is there any general sense that this is more about just the yahoos that run side-by-sides versus, or is it just...
Well, the BLM is pretty good about not singling out a group like that. And again, this is all based on the lawsuit and the travel management plan. They're not discriminating against one group versus another. It's anything motorized. So I'll give BLM credit for that. They are pretty good about not being like, oh, there's more ATVs on this trail, so we should include that as part of this closure. They don't really do that. They're more, in fact, most of the people at the BLM, I would venture to say, at least the Moab field office, are interested in keeping the trails open just managed better. And unfortunately, that means you're going to see more fencing, more 3-rail fencing on the sides of the trails and stuff, because people just can't stay on trail. But they are more interested in keeping it open than anything else. So yeah, no, this fight doesn't really have anything to do with UTV versus Jeep versus dirt bike, whatever.
It's kind of interesting, and I think I mentioned this a couple podcasts ago. We on our Colorado San Juan adventure, I ran into a Forest Service slash BLM monitor who was stationed out in Animas Forks, and he was actually spending his summer in Silverton area. But I'd never seen anybody out there, and I thought, huh. And it was really cool because I went up and I introduced myself and we chatted for a little bit and told him, hey, look, we have a commercial group out here and wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page as far as what's going on. But it was interesting because they had the manpower to have somebody there. And he said, it's amazing the difference that it makes in an area, because people are going into Animas Forks and people are carving their names into the walls of the historic structures. Like
Yeah.
They caught
ridiculous.
somebody
Yeah,
when we were
while we were
there
there was a
doing it.
guy going to carve his name in the side of a door. But again, they have the manpower to do that. Now, do people pull up and they go, "Uh-oh, the BLM's here, or the Forest Service is here. We all have to watch our P's and Q's." Well,
Yep.
maybe so, and rightfully so, because people are, forgive me, but they're asshats, and they don't respect these trails or these environments at all. They're not used to being outside. If Moab Field Office, if they had the budget or the personnel to staff another 100 officers out in the district and have them have an easy up and a I mean, we don't want that. We don't want to come across a police officer on the trail yet. If that's what it takes, man, I just I don't know. I'm so torn apart about, we want to protect our trails. We want to leave them open, but we have to respect the properties that we have. And I don't know if people are doing that yet. I hope that through this, there's a lot more land use posts. There's a lot more land use activity, I feel like, social media wise. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take for everybody to educate each other and go, look, you got to change. You got to do it right.
For sure. No, that's it. That's absolutely right. It's about education. It's about doing things right. And people, you said, I don't, if people get scared when a BLM officer is there, they should. I actually, and I don't know enough about this to say a whole bunch about it, but the BLM officers, the BLM law enforcement has as much or more power than any city cop in Moab, and as much as the sheriffs do. So yeah, they're not people to be messed with.
That's right.
Yeah, they take their job very seriously. They're very good at it, and they should be respected as such. So yeah, if you're doing something wrong, they also rely on us guided, our permitted guides to turn other people in as well. People have given me a hard time over the years about this. Like, why would you turn somebody in? Because I don't want these trails to be closed.
That's
and
right.
I've actually had to sign sworn affidavits against people for what I saw and turn them in and get them ticketed and taken care of. Hell, years ago, there was many companies, a few of your competitors, that were using Moab as their own personal commercial backdrop for all their products and got caught doing it. And then lied to the BLM officers about it, got caught again doing it, and got slapped with a pretty big fine and had to do quite a bit of community service work to get out of that. So they take it seriously. Moab should be taken seriously, and we hope that this helps a little bit.
Well said, Jeremy. Well said. Well, on that note, here's the call to action, everybody. We will have links in our show notes, and you can get a little bit of detail from the Red Walk Four Wheelers by rr4w.org, right? It's .org. There's data on their site, but we'll provide more data and more in-depth understanding, because what Jeremy said is absolutely true. It's not just going making comments. And when I posted it, I'll admit, I'm sure a lot of people that responded to my original post just went and said, hey, keep it open, keep it open. And that's awesome. Thank you guys for doing that. But now we need to go and do it a little bit more seriously with an understanding as to why should they keep it open? What is the actual story? Share your personal story, share the story of others on, and touch. Really, remember, you're talking to individuals. These are individuals. They have lives. They're not just rubber stamp bureaucrats. They have a passion and understanding and interest in what they're doing, and they're trying to do the best. But they want to do the best for the most people, and you are part of those people. So go out there and take your stories and touch their hearts. Touch their hearts. Include photos. It's okay. That's how it works.
And guys, you don't have to live in the West. You don't have to, if you're in Florida, if you're in California, if you're in Montana, I don't care where you're at. You can be involved in this process. Don't think that this vote is, well, I'm not a Utah resident, so I can't say anything. That's not what this is about.
That's
this
right.
is everybody. All of us. Texas, everywhere. Like
Bureau of Land, and I'm sorry, international too. No offense,
Yes.
but if you're planning on coming visiting and you're one of our listeners around the world, share it, because the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, it's a federal organization, and it's one that they'll all take your input. So everybody's welcome. Don't think that, and we've seen this kickback before when we have these kind of issues. Well, we don't have public lands out here. So what are you guys in California? What are you guys out here complaining about in Utah? What are you complaining about? Yeah, but this is the point. Out here, it's not going to be, like you said, we're not going to be able to then go and buy a bunch of land out here from the BLM and say, okay, we're going to reopen it as a private park. It's not going to happen. It's going to be lost.
You can't. There's over 80% of the land in Utah is federally managed.
Right. Same with Nevada.
So there is no land to buy to go do parks and things like that. There is none. And if there was, SUA and SITLA have bought it years ago, and now they use that land as bargaining chips or to fund school programs when they sell it for millions of dollars. So there is no private land to go buy and save Moab. It just doesn't exist.
Right.
So,
all right, well, friends, actions. Get out there, do it. We'll send all kinds of information. And listen, we don't ask you to do this often, but share this episode. Share this episode with your friends. We'll do a couple of key clips, right? We can do little key clips on Facebook and stuff that are simply sound bites of this episode to share out as well. But share this episode. Let your friends know about it. This is important. This is really, really important. If you have a fellow Jeeper, we have, unfortunately, October 8th is our thing, but we have a bunch of new Jeepers coming for October 15th Skills Day. They're going to get a little email from me leading up to it and about this, because if they want to be Jeepers and they want to be part of this community, these are the kind of things we have to fight for. So
be proactive about it, for sure.
Exactly. So we'll be sharing this out as much as we can to our community. Please share it out to yours. For all of our listeners, our loyal fans, we love you. Thank you so much for being part of this. But please share this. Send this to your friend. Tell your friend they should listen to this episode. If you don't want them to listen to the whole thing and you just want the nuts and bolts, well, then go in there and click it and just send them the link from YouTube to the exact timestamp that you want them to start listening. That would probably be helpful too. We can do a few things like that. But let's just get it out there and share it, make this a viral video or a viral podcast, just to inspire others to help us save Moab.
You know what? October 8th is my birthday. You want to get me a gift for my birthday? Follow the directions, get involved, make a comment, do that, and I won't hunt you down and follow you.
Well, I just saved a whole heck of a lot of money. So yeah, I'll do that for you, Corey. Happy birthday.
Cool.
Before we started the broadcast, Corey actually said if we get more than 1,500 shares, he will start an OnlyFans page.
Absolutely. So, yeah. You want to see me on OnlyFans? I'm there for you guys. You girls, guys.
What am I doing? Well, you can't discriminate, right?
You can't.
Those who love you, love you.
One subscriber.
Well, this is gonna be will this be a foot page?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Modern Jeepers. I was going to talk a little about my golf experience yesterday, but I will say this. The greatest moment in the entire 19 holes of this golf tournament we did for a foundation for a drug-free 18 holes, excuse me. 19 holes was well, I probably went into about 3 or 4 other holes I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
18 holes at this course at Sierraville Country Club, which was a fundraiser for the Foundation for a Drug-Free America. And I'll tell you that story later. But the greatest moment was going down the fairway and watching a red-tailed hawk. I think it was red-tailed hawk, red hawk, big, massive hawk, grab a squirrel off the ground, off the fairway, and keep going.
That's
It was
awesome.
incredible. Like,
Wow.
and this is a course in the middle of a suburban community, right? It's like surrounded by
awesome.
houses, and this hawk just goes down and grabs that squirrel, and you just see it flying off and landing in a tree on the other side of the fairway. Yeah,
Awesome.
that was
Awesome.
the best part. It made up for
Cool.
every other missed shot I had.
Cool.
All right, Modern Jeepers, this is another great episode. Thank you so much for joining us. You know how to reach us, Matson@milkclick.com, Corey@milkclick.com, Jesse@milkclick.com. How do they reach you, Jeremy?
OutlawJeepAdventures.com. There's a connect button right there. Other than that, Corey has my number. They can call him. You know.
Right.
And reach out if you want to know more details about this. Do reach out to Jeremy.
Yeah,
he can help you
call the
get in
shop
the right
too.
direction.
Anybody can call the office. Typically, leave a message and I'll get back to you the same day. But anybody can call the main number at work, and we'll answer all the questions you got.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy, for being part of the show and help sharing the on-the-ground experience. You know, it's our on-the-ground reporter in Moab. We've had a few of these come through, like let's see, the COVID reports, and now the land closing reports. One of these days, we'll just have you on because we want to have you on as a friend. But you know,
It'd be fun. We could talk about now. We have a 4xe. We'll have a 392 shortly. So
wow.
I actually think we actually will. We'll have every motor in the current JL in our lineup, so we could talk about the whole JL lineup.
That's it. And we have a suspension for every one of them and skid plates for every one of them. Yep.
Right.
It's all part of it. All part of the fun. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. And Modern Jeeper Adventures,
Death Valley.
Some spots are still open. Get over there and register and check it out.
Definitely.
That being said,
Is that right after SEMA?
Right after SEMA. Yep. Check out ModernJeeperAdventures.com. We have a couple of it's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of Death Valley is still closed because of flooding. So where we're going to go is, well, it's still a mystery even to me. But we'll definitely make that work, and it'll be an epic trip as always.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, my friends, to all of our fans out there, we'll see you on the trail.
Cheers.
See ya.
Hey guys.